Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeff Blowers. I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences at UOW College, Hong Kong. And it's my very great pleasure to welcome you to this inaugural UOW Global Enterprises Global Collaborate Conference, bringing together staff from all across the UOW campuses. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. And today we will be focusing on research at each of our entities. Remember, this is day one of a 3-day conference, and we hope you'll join us for all 3 days. In the first hour today, we're going to hear short presentations which highlight research activities of common interest, including global health, smart cities, and education. In the second half, a panel discussion will provide an opportunity for you to engage with the researchers and find out more about potential areas for research collaboration. The panel will help answer the question, how can UOW take advantage of our global campus network to form unique collaborative research teams that can make an impact in addressing the challenges facing communities in the region we operate? Now, before we begin, I have a little housekeeping to put in order. To remind you, today's session is being recorded and will be made available to all registrants. If you have any questions during the presentations, please type these questions into the question box in your Zoom control panel. During the presentation, during the panel discussion, our presenters will be able to address these. In particular, do think about questions related to UN Sustainable Development Goals. Please also note that questions will be seen by all attendees. If you'd like to ask a question anonymously, please select that option before submitting. Okay, it's now my great pleasure to introduce UOW Global Enterprises Group CEO, Ms. Marissa Mastroianni, who will welcome you all.
Well, thank you, Jeffrey. And I'm actually delighted to be able to provide the official welcome today. Let me begin by saying good afternoon to our colleagues in Australia, Hong Kong and Malaysia, and good morning, Dubai. So good morning to our colleagues in Dubai. Welcome to everyone. So I must say I'm pretty excited to be that we're having our first ever joint UOW Global Enterprises conference. And I just hope that after this event, it's going to become a feature in our calendars every year. So as you've heard Jeffrey just say, the theme is Global Collaborate, and we're really aiming to celebrate, showcase, and also raise awareness of the collaborations that are occurring across our campuses, but also I think provide a space for reflection and for the future opportunities for collaborative projects. So let's see how these next 3 days go. Look, the other thing that it's really was interesting is that when we put this conference together, we were really looking at delivering on UOW's strategic plan goal 1.31, where it talks about having the objective of enhancing UOW's international presence and creating opportunities for student mobility and collaboration across UOW's network. So we're really aligned to what the university strategic plan states as well. So I trust the next 3 days really inspire and sow the seeds for even stronger alignment and collaboration. And I wish I could say that hosting this conference was my bright idea, but no. And it will come no surprise to any of you, I don't think, that holding this conference actually came for our Vice-Chancellor, Trish Davidson, and this was even before she officially started as Vice-Chancellor. So thank you, Trish, for the inspiration and for the encouragement. A conference such as this just doesn't happen magically. It actually happens with a lot of work and planning, and as such, I would like to thank all of the people who've worked so hard to put this event together. In particular, I'd like to start with thanking the staff from across all of our campuses who sat on the committee that designed the program for each day's theme, for today's theme of research. And today's theme of research, we're going to have Professor Christian Ritz, who's the Associate Dean International, from UOW College Hong Kong, Professor Jeffrey Blowers, who's the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences. From UOW Malaysia, we have Dr. Gomez Nair, who's the head of the Centre of Research and Innovation. And from UOWD, we have Professor Mail Bakarchi, who's our Associate Dean Research EIS. Of course, thank you to our conference conveners who have been working very hard behind the scenes as well, and that's Professors Wilma Viale and Grace McCarthy. Thanks also goes out to our fantastic support staff who have worked in the planning of this event. So thank you to Luke Shirelli and also Adam Thorogood and their teams. And of course, special thanks to our Chief Architect for the whole event, Tom Brombrick. You are a superstar. Thank you very much. And now as the conference gets away, I'd like to ask participants to consider and make a note of what they think is their favourite presentation each day. We're going to be asking you to vote at the end of the conference. We're going to be awarding the People's Choice Award. So finally, whether you're here for the 1 day or 2 or the whole 3, please join me in celebrating the great work that our people do every day. So I really do hope you enjoy. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Professor Patricia Davidson, the Vice-Chancellor and President of the University of Wollongong, who's going to provide the opening address for this conference. Professor Davidson, or Trish, as she likes to be called, joined UOW in May this year. Now, as a UOW alumna, Professor Davidson also returned to the place where she began her career in academia. She completed her Bachelor of Arts and Master of Education at UOW, and in 2013 received the university's Distinguished Alumni Award. Prior to joining UOW, Professor Davidson was Dean of the John Hopkins School of Nursing in Baltimore in the United States. She's a true global leader in nursing, healthcare and advocacy, and for much of her career has been devoted to the needs of women and disadvantaged communities. Trish is an inspiration to all students and staff of UOW. She truly is, and has shown through her career the possibilities that await those who are committed to finding solutions and driving positive change in our global communities. So it gives me great pleasure in asking you all to please join me in welcoming Trish to provide the opening address. Thank you, Trish.
Well, thanks so much, Marissa, and for a wonderfully warm and generous introduction. And as you know, you only have to say to Marissa, can you do it? And she does it. And so I'm just so excited about this conference. And maybe I can tell you a little bit why. Firstly, I was very inspired by the acknowledgement of country and recognise that the University of Wollongong respects First Nations people all over the world. And it's my great pleasure to be able to see everybody from my colleagues in Australia, all over Australia, Hong Kong, Malaysia, and Dubai, and other people are listening in. Just before I make some comments around global communities, I really want to acknowledge the challenging times that we've all lived through, particularly in some parts of the world. Our colleagues in Malaysia have really, really suffered. And I think nobody can say they have not been impacted by the pandemic. And I think we firstly want to honour the lives lost, the people who are suffering, and acknowledge that the isolation and uncertainty has been very challenging. The World Health Organization has estimated between 80,000 and 180,000 healthcare workers could have died from COVID-19 between January 2020 and May 2021. I think that is such a sobering statistic, particularly as we address many of the challenges that will be talked about during these meetings. And that is just health workers. I don't think we've actually begun to fathom the loss of brain power across many disciplines that has occurred during the pandemic. And all of these deaths and loss are a tragic loss and, have really generated a huge gap in the world's response, not just to the pandemic, but to protecting our climate and making our world a healthier, safer and more prosperous place. So it's so wonderful that you today can be together to collectively address some of the most complex challenges facing the world. I think for me, COVID has taught me a lot about myself, and I'm sure for all of you, COVID has taught you a lot about yourself. It's taught us a lot about our organisations, our leaders, and what matters. It has really demonstrated many of our frailties and many of our strengths. And it's really recognised the frailties of nationalism and populism. Viruses know no borders, and we all are on this planet inextricably linked. So that is why the University of Wollongong, as a global community, has so much power to make a difference in the world. Nelson Mandela once said that education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. And I think the pandemic has really verified this. We know that what has saved us from this pandemic has been science, and not just of the type that you would think about vaccines, but it's also taught us about the power of education to prepare frontline workers in all areas. And it's also taught us about, pardon me, many aspects that many of us have not really thought so much about, particularly supply chain and how important it is to how we have managed this pandemic. I'm really sorry I haven't had the chance to come and visit all the campuses, but I'm really planning to rectify that in 2022. Watch out, UOW Dubai. Marissa and I will be there in January. And can I tell you what excites me about the University of Wollongong is really our enacting of what is a very often tokenistic phrase, local to global. But I think this is something that we all really do. The other thing is about the University of Wollongong is our diversity. 50% of our staff were born in another country. And the city of Wollongong is a city in contemporary times built on Indigenous land of migrants from all around the world. So for me, I think that environment of diversity is not just exciting, but it is also creative and means that we have the substrate to really address some of the really complex and challenging problems that the world face. I want to grow and celebrate the collaborations occurring across our global network. And I thank Marissa and the many people that she acknowledged for getting behind that vision. Often I've spent a lot of time in global health, and I often think about what makes a difference is people that have that global spirit. It's much harder to write it down and define it, but certainly you know it when you see it. And what I think this speaks to is this notion of reciprocity, sharing of information, and not privileging any race, culture, gender, religion above another. And I think as we look back at the last 2 years and the suffering in the world, much of the suffering has been born out of intolerance. And we have seen in many countries in the world that there has not just been one pandemic, but the pandemics of the rich and the poor. So I really know one thing very firmly, that we are stronger together. I know that science matters. I know that education is a transformative force for good. And I know that we have the answers to many of the complex problems facing the world. And a lot of that is not just about some of the amazing inventions that many of our colleagues will develop, but also the matters of ways that we work together, the ways we do business, and the ways we communicate. So just as we talk about interprofessional education, that you can't work together if you don't learn together. And I really think from a global perspective, how can we be a coherent global community unless we learn together, unless we work together, and unless we respect each other? So this is going to be an amazing event. The following 3 days will focus on, today is a research focus, tomorrow there's going to be teaching and learning, and the third day, the 18th of November, is going to really focus on student and staff mobility among our entities, which is very, very exciting. Because our university is a young, dynamic and innovative university, and our global footprint reflects this. And it also will allow us to really tease out many of the things about globalization, economic globalization, political, cultural globalization, and even now what a lot of people talk about is snowballization, where people have become to challenge this global interconnectedness. And then the other great thing about the University of Wollongong is not only are we locally focused in Australia in our foundation campus, but we proudly acknowledge our Indigenous name of Wollongong and all of that means. And we are on the verge through Jindola and other ways of learning about how Indigenous knowledges and the knowledge of First Nations people can make a difference in the world. I see, in spite of the many challenges that we face, that the future is very bright. And much of this will happen through working together, celebrating each other's success, supporting each other through the challenges. So again, thank you so much for everybody for making this happen. I also want to echo my specific thanks to Tom and Wilma and Grace, who have really got behind Marissa to make this happen. And also the leadership here from each of our campuses. And of course, our amazing faculty, staff and students who are here today. Thank you all so very much, and please enjoy the next 3 days. And I'm looking forward to sitting back and relaxing and hearing about research across all the campuses. So thanks so much, Marissa.
Thank you very much, Professor Davison. Trish, if I may, as Marissa suggested, we call each other. A very inspiring talk, sobering as well at the same time. And now we're going to move to the individual presentations. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Professor Pascal Perez, who is Senior Professor at UOW, who's going to speak on the rise of smart cities, a view from the trenches. Professor Perez, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I had to shorten my presentation due to the 6 minutes format. And for the people who know me, they all know that I'm struggling to give a topic within 6 minutes. So what I've decided to do is because it's the 10th anniversary of the Smart Infrastructure Facility, is probably to describe what the facility is about, and more importantly, what are the key characteristics, the key features of what I consider to be SMART's DNA, and what it makes us unique 10 years later, and more importantly, what will make us still a successful research entity for the next 10 years. Next, please. Thank you. So this is a beautiful facility, the Smart Infrastructure Facility on the main campus in Wollongong. So this building was completed in 2011, we're in 2021. So this is our 10th anniversary already. It feels like time has been flying. Next. So our mission from the start, and it hasn't changed, is to be internationally recognized as a leading provider of research and learning for smart infrastructure solutions. What does it mean, infrastructure solutions? Well, it means that we have to look at infrastructure. So we're talking water, electricity, roads, railway, and so on and so forth, not from a sector perspective and a very specific perspective, because there's many other centers in Australia who are already doing that. No, we have a mandate to look at all these systems, networks, and services from a holistic perspective, looking at the trade-off and synergies between all systems, and more importantly, try to figure out whether they can contribute to urban and regional development and growth in the country. SMART is an acronym. Sorry, no, that's to be too fast, thank you. SMART is an acronym that has changed. I won't tell you what it meant at the beginning, but now we're very proud to say that SMART stands for sustainable, modular, adaptive, reliable, and technology-enabled infrastructure. And this is what we are working on. Next, please. And if there are three of these characteristics of our DNA that are important and I'd like to share with you today, is impact, its excellence, and its diversity. Impact, I will give probably the best example I can provide you, is this project called Peta Jakarta that we ran a couple of years ago in Indonesia with Twitter as our main partner and the Jakarta's Disaster Management Authority. Many of you might know that Jakarta is hit every year by massive floods, and there are most of the time massive economic damages and sometimes, unfortunately, loss of lives. So what we did at the time is to partner with Twitter as part of 6 projects only in the world sponsored by Twitter at the time, in order to create a crowdsourced and real-time mapping of floods in the city. So tens of thousands of people contributing in real time at mapping the state of the flood in different parts of the city. And we're talking a city of 25 million people, as big population as Australia as a whole. And this information being mapped in real time by the Disaster Management Authority and provided to the operation services and also back to the citizen. What was a research project has become an operational tool that is used by the Disaster Management Authority. The second aspect, next please, of Smart DNA is excellence. And the best example I can give you is the recent award from the government through the SURF funding of $1.7 million to create a Telstra UOWGE hub for AIoT solutions. AIoT stands for Artificial Intelligence of Things. This is all about smart video, edge computing, and real-time analytics. We've got one of the best teams in the world now, and we've got the support not only from Telstra, but Microsoft and NVIDIA, giant in the sector. And I'm very proud to lead such a team. So the future is very bright in that domain. Next, please. And finally, diversity. So as you can see on these pictures, there are many of our staff and our associate researchers from the university and beyond. And of course, it's about social and gender diversity, as you can see. But it's also about disciplinary diversity. We're very proud to have projects with all the faculties in the university as I speak, and it's been the case for a long time. And as a director, this is probably one of my KPIs to make sure that it is always the case, not only with the Faculty of Engineering and Computer Science and Information Science. Diversity of type of engagement with our partners outside the academia. And it starts with usual public grant kind of relationships through ARC and NHMRC project, but also involvement with large consortia linking industry, government, and academia, such as the Future Fuel CRC, we're a key member of, or the Australian Centre for Rail Innovation, with which we've just renewed our collaboration. but also, and more importantly for me as director, a very vibrant, a very lively, a very dynamic relationship with all the SMEs and startups in the region who want to create, in particular, innovation around AIoT, I already mentioned. So this is, I think, the key aspects of SMART that make us unique: impact, excellence, and diversity. Last slide. So I encourage everybody on this call that would like to know more, would like to collaborate with us, please just flick me an email or just get onto our website, and we're quite happy to engage. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that very interesting presentation, Pascal. Clearly, a very complex situation with smart cities and various ways in which I think people can begin to collaborate around diversity and other areas to do with city construction and problems and so on. Thank you, really good. So now we move to a couple of pre-recorded presentations. The next one, I'm delighted to say, comes from two of my colleagues in Hong Kong's campus. Professor Wong Poi Kwong and Irene Chin are both in the Faculty of Arts and Humanities, and they're going to talk about language attitudes of Hong Kong ethnic minorities primary school students towards learning Putonghua and its implications for designing a tailor-made Putonghua pedagogy for such students. And this will be followed by a presentation from UAE Dubai from Doctors Iannis Manikas and Balan Sundarakani, and they will be talking about a large-scale national project on food security in the United Arab Emirates.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Wong Pui Kwong. The lady sits next to me is Dr. Chin Fong Irene. We are from UOWGE College, Hong Kong. Today, we will share with you some information about our research project. The language attitude of Hong Kong ethnic minority primary school students towards Putonghua and its implications for designing a tailor-made Putonghua pedagogy for such students. First of all, we would like to thank Professor Blowers for giving us this opportunity to present you our project. Firstly, background. There are many language education problems in Hong Kong. The problem we concerned is most of the Hong Kong ethnic minority primary school students whose most frequently used language at home is English, while most Chinese students at home speak a Chinese dialect that is Cantonese. Cantonese is similar to Chinese and make Chinese students study Chinese much easier than ethnic minority school students do. The ethnic minority students lag behind seriously in learning Chinese in Hong Kong schools. Hong Kong government pay attention to such problem, and a consultative committee for Hong Kong government scholar, that is Standing Committee on Language Education and Research, announced that they will fund research on this area. Dr. Chin initiated this project, and we jointly applied for the funding and successfully got it in June this year. The project period is November 2021 to to 31st October 2023 for 2 years. Now I invite Dr. Chin to give us more details about the project.
Okay, thank you, Professor Wang. Thank you, Professor Wang, for providing this project's background. And I will continue to introduce our project's objectives and research plan. So the objectives of the projects are to ascertain Hong Kong ethnic minority primary students' attitude towards learning and using Putonghua, to investigate the causes of such attitude, to propose appropriate Putonghua teaching strategies and methods for such students, and to design experimental Putonghua teaching material in light of the teaching strategies and the methods, to conduct an experimental teaching, and to compare the effectiveness of the existing Putonghua curriculum with the proposed curriculum designed in light of the customized teaching strategies and methods. And then we move to the research plan. Our research plan consists of two main parts. The first part is a survey on the language attitude of Hong Kong EM primary school students towards learning and using Putonghua. And the second part is the study of Putonghua teaching strategies and methods appropriate for such students. For more details, our process will involve 5 stages. In the first stage, we will complete the design of survey questionnaire, the design of class observation forms, and design of interview questions for frontline teachers and principals. In the second stage, we'll conduct of the questionnaire survey. A third stage, we'll do the class observation interviews. And stage 4, we'll conduct of experimental teaching. And the last stage, we'll do the sorting, consolidation, and analysis of data, writing up the reports and the papers.
Finally, opportunities for collaborative projects. The language education environment in Malaysia may be similar to Hong Kong. The Chinese constitute the country's largest minority at approximately 24%. Chinese students in Malaysia may lag behind in learning national language in comparison with Malaysian students in schools. Colleagues in UOW Malaysia KDU interested in the language education may collaborate with us to plan a comparative study on Hong Kong and Malaysia. Thank you.
Okay, so this is the end of our presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Thank you and have a nice day.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Ioannis Manikas. I'm an associate professor at the University of Wollongong in Dubai with a background in supply chain management and research focus on agri-food supply chain and sustainability. I will give a brief presentation about the project that I'm currently a principal investigator, which is funded by the Ministry of Education of the Emirates. It has started earlier this year, the beginning of 2021. And the name of the acronym of the project is READY, and the title is Resilient Agri-Food Dynamism through Evidence-Based Policies. So this is a project, as I said, that is being funded by the Ministry of Education. It was a collaborative research grant that was announced 2 years ago. It has a total value of 6.8 million dirhams, and its duration is 3 years, 36 months. This project consists of a consortium, a partnership between 4 partners. We are the leaders of the project, the Faculty of Business in UOWGE. We have as partners the UAE University with the College of Food and Agriculture. We have the International Center of Biosala in Agriculture. It is agriculture-related research center based in Dubai. And we also have Dubai municipality participating with their Food Safety Authority, an expert department in the Dubai municipality, which is responsible for monitoring all products that are being imported and sold in Dubai Emirate. So, why this project is important for the UAE? UAE, although it is ranked highly in the food security ranking and evaluation, it was 21st based on 2019 food security score. This ranking does not, however, reflect the natural resources availability, which is quite limited and make the agri-food supply chains in the country quite vulnerable to disruptions. And that was quite evident during the COVID pandemic, where many exporters have placed export restrictions on their produce, and people in the UAE have experienced shortages. They couldn't find the products, the food products on the retailers' shelves, and that created stress to the people. So why food security and food supply chain resilience is very important in the Emirates? Because of several limitations, such as land constraints, water constraints, as well as the growth of population. So all these factors, all these parameters make the issue of food security and addressing the issue of food security very, very important in the UAE and generally speaking, the MENA region. So what we want to do is to provide, to give a holistic approach on the food security and food supply chain resilience paradigm through an evidence-based reasoning approach, and develop a decision support framework that will be facilitated by several tools, tools that will be available online, tools that will be available with the use of the Industry 4.0 technologies, such as big data, such as artificial intelligence, and so on. This main objective will be achieved through several aims. First, we need to understand the vulnerabilities of the system, assess the food system dynamics that leads to the resilience destination. To understand the factors that impact on the resilience of the system, deliver the tools, as we said, monitor and evaluate the vulnerabilities of the system, and deliver policy recommendations and strategies for improving resilience, what we want to call a roadmap towards resilience for the system. The last slide that I would like to share with you is to show you the more detailed, let's say, structure of this project with all the relevant tasks that are included. Maybe you will see something on these tasks that fit well into your expertise and background, or maybe your interest for future research, even if you're not very much related to the food supply chain element. Maybe you will see some things that might be interested to you as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Professor Manikas, and also the previous presenters, Professors Wong and Chin, for their very interesting presentation too. You can see already how very diverse our projects are across the campuses. And do remember, if you do have questions, please type them into the relevant message box on your Zoom program. We now turn to Dr. Ong Song Kwan, who's at the University of Malaysia KDU campus, and he's going to give a talk on machine learning and computer vision in entomology, how data mining transforms public health and biodiversity conservation. Okay.
Thank you very much, Prof. So, hello everyone, I'm Dr. Ong from UOW Malaysia KDU. So today, basically, I'm sharing two projects. Is about how we nowadays using AI, so more specific machine learning, so and computer vision in entomology. So then how these tools can actually transform, in particular, biodiversity. Next, please. So in general, when we want to evaluate or assess public health, for example, like those vector-borne disease. So when we say about vector-borne disease, it's like dengue, Zika, yellow fever, all these kind of diseases are actually transmitted by mosquito. So as well as when we want to do some conservation about biodiversity, so we need to really assess to all these insects. Okay, so these 5 stages are actually the most basic phase or stages that we want to really assess to these insects. First, definitely is a problem. Then we identify where is the location. Then we start to have this field sampling, means that probably we have this trap, or we have manpower to probably do some active sampling. Then we bring back the insects. We need to really identify their species, and we need to do all this sorting. Then later we can do further data analysis. So for our lab, together with Dr. Gomesh and Dr. Joshua, so we focus a lot on this sampling and taxonomy. So because we can see like the AI, in particular machine learning and deep learning, okay, can help us do a lot of this sampling and taxonomy. Next, please. So for example, like this is 2 very common mosquito in the household of Malaysia. So probably you can see the color of the mosquito is made up from black color and yellow color. So it's quite easy to distinguish and do this sorting, or we call separations. So then we need to really identify until the species level. By using machine learning, okay, together with some modeling, okay, we can now doing all this sorting as well as the counting just within a few of seconds. Okay, so just for example, like this, when we are running the machine learning model, okay, in particular SVM, okay, so then when we using that together with the YOLO, then we can really get this result all done by just a few seconds. Previously, when we need to do all this kind of thing, we need to like probably take about days, or sometimes it need to be weeks, depends on the numbers of the sample. So next, please. So for example, just now we have the yellow color and the so-called black color. So the yellow color actually is the Culex quincy facetus. Then the black color is the one that Aedes aegypti. So it's the one that transmit dengue and Zika in probably the whole world. Then our lab then later want to focus more closely related species. For example, like we have this Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus. Just for your information, these 2 species of mosquito transmit the dengue as well. But their morphology, means their external appearance is highly similar. So there's a reason why we want to see, is it possible that we can use the computer vision together with deep learning? So this time we are using the DCNN to distinguish between these 2 closely related species. And because as like entomologists or those are biologists, means that they are not really like the computer science experts. We want to make the tools easier for those that are domain expert to use. And there's a reason why we started to propose some very easy to use browser web tools that actually you can train the model, okay, within the web page, okay, and then by just loading with these images, and then they will come up with the so-called small size of model. Okay, and this is we are using the MobileNet V2. Okay, so that's the reason why our ultimate goal is we want to use this machine learning model or deep learning model, okay, within our OS, means the mobile device. Later, that can help us to detect the mosquito in real time. Okay, that's the reason why this is the project. Next, please, Tom. So, but some of these insects is not that convenient to study, okay, to be honest. For example, like when we look at this housefly larva, okay, so as you can see from this picture, all of these housefly larva is existing like thousands or sometimes like a few hundred thousands. So then all of these so-called insects or maggots, okay, you want to call it maggots, okay, so then they are actually overlapping. So how we can really estimate their so-called abundance? Next, please. Then we actually can use their so-called closely contact media. Means that what actually these larvae contacted, okay? Because once these larvae contacted, actually their excrements or their body heat actually will influence the surrounding. So we are using this surrounding clue or features to train the model and then use that to estimate the population. And this will be highly useful later when we are monitoring the insects or any of these animals within the biodiversity without actually looking on the animal. Next, please. So that's the reason why moving forward, actually all these eco-informatics, okay, is having very, very high potential. So as long as we are having good enough internet and networks, okay, so then we can use this IoT to collect the field data, not only within the urban area, could be from the forest. So then together, for example, like the chemi-informatics, okay, we can monitor some very tricky issue like insecticides resistant monitoring and predicting some like chemical structure. Then the last one will be definitely computational biology, including the bioinformatics. So then the one that is most related to the SDG will be how we can really have the more accurate model to predict this vector-borne disease such as dengue. Next, thank you. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Song Kwan. Very interesting talk. Just amazing where computation is taking us. I just think it's quite extraordinary. Thank you. Okay, well, we move now to our next presenter back at UOW Dubai, and this time it's Dr. Stephen Wilkinson, who's going to talk about examples of managing multinational research projects.
Hello, can you hear me? Good, good. I'm going to talk about two projects, and this is just showing how the collaboration worked for these projects across multiple campuses, across multiple countries. Can we move to the next slide? This is the first one. This has got animations in, please just bring it in, otherwise I'll be saying click, 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 click. So all the way through. So for this project, we were working between the UK and China. I was working in a collaboration university, which was Xianjiaotong Liverpool University. So it was between Xianjiaotong Liverpool University in Suzhou and Liverpool University in the UK. The way that this project was structured was the university in China decided that instead of employing TAs, they would employ a large number of PhD students, but because they didn't have the PhD degree awarding powers, they used University of Liverpool PhD program, and there was always a member of staff from University of Liverpool on all of these PhD projects. So for this one, the vast majority of the team was in China. There was one researcher who was in the UK, and the PhD students spent 2 years in China and then 1 year within the UK. This one was quite an interesting project in that it combined lots of different things. So I am an engineering geologist, this was using microorganisms to solidify soils. So go from a sand to a rock-like material with a much higher strength. So we had a microbiologist, we had an environmental scientist, and a geotechnical engineer in the UK trying to solidify these sand with these microorganisms. And the PhD student had to deal with all of these different subject areas and bring this together as part of his project. And he's produced these solid sand columns, which has been broken apart in the bottom image here. So that's how that one worked. The second one that I want to talk about, can you go to the next slide? This one is just to show the effectiveness of this approach. This is all of the papers that was produced by one PhD student working on this project with a number of different supervisors, and with the 1 year in the UK where he did some experimental work. On to the next slide, please. This one is another project now between Dubai and again with the group in China. This one, the collaboration is more of a facilities collaboration. So in this project, what we're doing is working out how sand works on a fundamental level. We've got these discrete element computational models, but we're never quite sure whether what we get from these models is what's actually happening in the real world. Now with the ability of 3D printers, we can actually print grains that match those that we have in these 3D models. So for this, we are doing the 3D printing in Dubai, and the computational modeling and the imaging of these grains under electron microscope is taking place in China. The key thing here, the PhD students are in China. The key thing here is the continual communication, continual collaboration between the two groups, and making sure that everyone is up to date on what's happening in both locations so that we can bring the data together. Okay, that's everything from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. Very interesting presentation too. And we now move to Professor Brian Wong, who's at UOW Malaysia KDU. He's going to be talking about IR 4.0 technologies and their adoption in health tourism. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Jeff. Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow colleagues of UOW Global Network. I'm Brian from UOW Malaysia KDU School of Business to share with you my recent collaborative research on health tourism. Next, please. Yeah. While we clearly know the urgency of discovering the vaccine to curb COVID-19 since early of last year, it is less predictably social science research is gaining momentum as well. The recent COVID-19 pandemic, in fact, has significantly affected the tourism industry, especially in the health tourism. Though the health tourism remains a topic to deliberate, and no consensus actually has been reached so far on its definition. In my research, it is defined as the organized travel outside one's local environment for maintenance, enhancement, or restoration of an individual's well-being in mind and body. Next, please. Just to give you a bit of the background, the global health or medical tourism market is worth between $65 to $87.5 billion and is growing annually at about 15 to 25% pre-pandemic. In 2020, Malaysia Healthcare Travel Council, or MHTC, which is the private arm of the Ministry of Health Malaysia, aimed to achieve about 2.8 billion ringgit from health tourism revenue, with an estimated economic impact of about 10 billion ringgit on Malaysia's economy actually. However, due to the pandemic, MHTC has revised its projection to about 500 million ringgit revenue in 2020, which is only about 70 to 75% of 2019 figures. The decrease of health tourism revenue in 2020 was mostly caused by closed borders and stricter standard operating procedures. However, they aim to reach about 800 million ringgit health tourism earnings this year, 2021, and about 1 billion ringgit again back next year. Within Malaysia, Penang is among the top health tourism destinations. The northern state estimated to generate about 40 to 50% of the entire country's health tourism revenue. With the economic importance of these niche tourism products, so it is essential for us to understand the impact of the pandemic on health tourism, especially for Penang market, and also how technology plays a role in assisting the healthcare facilities to address its customers' needs during these difficult times. Therefore, it came with this research interest that combines the effort from UOW Malaysia KDU, University of Malaya, as well as the Institute of Tourism Studies Macau. So due to the access limitation of the pandemic, the study was conducted using qualitative method, in-depth interviewed some COOs, marketing heads, and IT heads as well, of about 6 health tourism facilities in Penang. Next, please. Just to share a bit of the findings that we found, our study found that some of the Penang hospitals recorded a revenue drop of up to 80% during the movement control order period, as 65% of their patients' portfolio come from overseas. So several of them have started to invest into technology pre-pandemic period actually. Hence, they are able to prepare themselves better to serve the international patients better as well during that period of time. The pandemic has further speed up the process of technology adoption among the healthcare facilities. Somehow or other, the pandemic becomes a blessing in this health tourism sector. Digitalized healthcare is bringing diagnostic procedures to the smartphone, ECGs, blood glucose levels, blood pressure monitoring, pulse, blood oxygen saturation levels can now be readily assessed with wearable devices, like my smartwatch, for example, sensors, thus keeping international patients regularly updated on their progress and providing proactive measures for better health control by the doctors in Malaysia. So tele-pharmacy collaboration with local facilities and doctors overseas, as well as e-wallet payments are among the other initiatives. In the study, I also found that while artificial intelligence, robotics, early warning score or EWS, and self-check-in, as you can see in the picture there, are already in use now, some of the facilities indicated their plan to further adopt higher-end technologies such as proton beams, virtual reality, and smart peeps to better serve health tourists in the near future. In fact, Malaysia Healthcare Travel Council is also preparing for an industrial rebound through the adoption of telehealth by all hospitals to ensure continuity of care. In the study, we also found that majority of the participated healthcare institutions believe that technology is only a mere enhancement towards the service rather than being a replacement. They too believe that it is only worth to invest towards technological advancement if they presume patients would utilize the option, as well as the readiness of users from providers to end users. Next, please. So moving forward in the health tourism research, we may also look at the consumer's view on essentials of technology adoption by the health tourism facilities. Within the health tourism sector, we also can study the technology adoption among the more niche segments, such as dental tourism for Australian market, fertility tourism for the Chinese market, and halal surgical tourism for the Middle Eastern markets. So essentially, for UOW Global Networks to really connect its academics who have similar research interests. Next, please. Right. So in conclusion, personally, I really believe that it is only by collaboration across global campuses would provide new opportunities and creating more impactful studies, especially in the field where I'm very much interested in, health tourism as well as retirement tourism. So the ability to really connect the dots of research is essential, I believe, in this new normal condition. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Brian. Very interesting and obviously very topical. Some of what you're proposing, of course, is likely to be taken up in airports around the world. We're going to close out the first part of this session with the remaining 2 presentations. The first is coming from Professor Stacey Carter at UOW. She's going to talk about the Australian Centre for Health Engagement, Evidence and Values, and that will be followed by Dr. Keanu Look at UOW Hong Kong, who will be talking on rethinking the pedagogy, challenges of online learning and teaching in practicum-based education during COVID-19 panic.
Hello, my name's Stacey Carter. I'm a professor in the School of Health and Society in the Faculty of the Arts, Humanities and Social Sciences at the UOW Wollongong campus. And today I want to tell you about the centre that I direct, called the Australian Centre for Health Engagement, Evidence and Values. So we have a wonderful team at the centre, academics, research assistants, visiting fellows, and PhD scholars, and we're all working together towards 3 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So our the central goal, the goal that's that connects all of our projects, is good health and wellbeing, goal 3. So everything that we do is about health, which is why we're in the School of Health and Society. But we approach health in a particular way. So what we're always trying to do is to address difficult or tricky health problems in society, to really connect with people, to engage people in a meaningful way around those challenges, to understand what matters to them, to engage with their values and understand what matters to them, and to give them opportunities to talk together about what should happen. And because of that approach that we take in all of our work, we're also always working towards Goal 10 and Goal 16. So SDG 10 is reduced inequalities, and we're particularly focused on target 10.2. So that target is that we will empower and promote the social, economic and political inclusion of all people, irrespective of age, sex, disability, race, ethnicity, origin, religion or economic or other status. So everything that we do, we're thinking about trying to be as inclusive as possible, trying to be as attentive to diversity as possible in the way that we operate our research projects, in the way that we approach problems. And then in respect of Goal 16, we're particularly attending to Target 16.7, and this really does sum up the mission of UOWGE. Target 16.7 is to ensure responsive, inclusive, participatory and representative decision-making at all levels. And the purpose of UOWGE is to provide methods by which members of the public, diverse, inclusive members of the public, can be brought into the process of decision-making in health and can participate in a meaningful way in that decision-making and influence that decision-making. So we do that via 4 research themes. So the first one that you can see in the top left sums up really the methodological expertise that we have. So the work that we do focuses on deliberation, engagement and values in health. So we're always asking what matters to people, what are people's values? And we do that both empirically by asking people, talking with them about that, and also because many of us have a background in health ethics. So we think about values from the point of view of ethics. We're often using engagement methods, so trying to bring a wide range of members of the public into conversations about difficult health problems. And we especially use deliberative methods. So these are methods where an inclusive group of members of the public are brought together. They're provided with high quality evidence from expert witnesses, and then they're supported to talk together and to come up with recommendations for decision makers about what should happen on difficult policy problems to fix things in the health system that perhaps could be better than they are right now. And we do that in 3 main areas, and there are other 3 themes. So the first of these is responding to public health risks, pandemics and emergencies. Dr. Chris Degling particularly leads on this work, so he's done a lot of work and continues to on antimicrobial resistance. He's also worked on COVID-19 decision making, and he and I have worked together extensively on vaccine hesitancy, which Annette Brennick-Meyer has also done some work on. Our second theme in the bottom left is data, technology and health futures. So I lead a suite of projects on artificial intelligence in health systems. Annette leads a series of projects on data use and data sharing. How should we use and should we use the data that's generated in health systems? That work especially involves Eva Kino, who is very much involved in my work on artificial intelligence. And then in the bottom right, we have our third theme, reducing overdiagnosis, overtreatment and low value healthcare. So this work is part of a big collaboration called Wiser Healthcare, on which I'm a chief investigator, that involves 4 universities across Australia, but also is linked out globally. Dr. Patty Shee is a central part of this program of work, which is trying to work out in all kinds of different conditions how we can make sure that the health system benefits people rather than often unintentionally causing them harm or wasting resources. So that gives you a sense of the kind of work that we do at Achieve. The work couldn't be done without collaboration. So we have collaborative networks throughout universities, throughout the country and across the world. But we also work extensively with consumer organisations, with non-government organisations who often actually have the expertise in the content areas that we're working on that we really need to be expert witnesses, for example, in deliberations, government agencies who are the decision makers, and of course, members of the public. So collaboration is really central to everything that we do. And I look forward to talking with you and hearing about other people's projects in the rest of the session. Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Keanu. It's from the UOWGE College, Hong Kong. And then today I'm going to talk about my research and then see about a future collaboration that is related to the rethinking the pedagogies, the challenge of the online learning and teaching in the paradigm-based education during the COVID-19 pandemic. As we all know, then COVID-19 has been first identified in December 2019, and it spreads globally right now and seriously affects our life. This is why we need to have the social distancing and avoid the crowd places. My research focuses on the education sectors, and as you know on that, the education sectors originally is from the conventional face-to-face teachings, has been changed to online teaching during the COVID-19. And we seriously relied on the e-learning and online platform during this pandemic. And the learning management system, LMC, and the online communication tools with the student and the online resources. Well, my research objective is focused on the tertiary education. We assume that the students in the tertiary education are the best group to use online learning because they are familiar with the internet, they are familiar with the online platform as well. So the education institute, tertiary institutes has changed most of the program to use the e-learning during the pandemic. And they believe on that most of the program are suitable to use the e-learning as well. But how about those programs based heavily on the paradigm-based training? Do they encounter more difficulties on arranging the skills lab, internship, and skill training as well? So my research questions is to ask, can these paradigm sections be conducted online, actually? And how the student and lecturer perceive the value of these online paradigm sections? There are 2 aims of my studies. The first one is to investigate the effectiveness of the implementation of online learning on the vocational-oriented program, particularly in tourism and engineering. The second aims of my research is to explore the challenge and obstacles of the student and lecturer face during the e-learning. Hopefully, throughout this research, we can review whether the new pedagogy can be adopted in the future vocational-based education. We have used a qualitative research approach, and here are the preliminary results. We find out that the online learning in the paradigm-based program might not be as effective as the other program. Because when we think about on that, the program intended learning outcome the course intended learning outcome, and the course assessment are linked together, and they are formulated under the traditional face-to-face learning environment. Therefore, it caused substantial difficulties for the lecturers to change to online teaching and assessment as well. And the skill-based training and practicum highly emphasize on the hands-on experience and interaction between the student and lecturers, particularly in the sub-degree education. So throughout the research, the lecturers find it out, and also the student find out there are a number of difficulties for them to have the online learning. What are the potential consequences? We find out the student cannot equip the paraprofessional skills, and it can affect their employability directly. Because of the e-learning, it causes the ripple effect on the number of potential student applications, and then finally might affect our admission figures, which is the one that we're most concerned. Therefore, we conclude that the practicum section is still irreplaceable in the vocational oriented program like tourism and engineering management. We find out that it still has the needs of the face-to-face practicum and training. But we will reflect on that, we think about that, the blended learning mode is still feasible. But we are questionable on the practicum-based program, whether it is possible to do about the entire online learning mode as the new pedagogies. After this research, I have thought about on that, what are the future collaboration within the UOWGE global networking. Here are my 3 ideas. Number 1, we can see whether it is possible to conduct the same research and then across the campuses and see any differences result. We'll find it out on that. The second one is that I really want to investigate the students and lecturers with different background and then see is there any big differences among them. Because in different campuses, and the student and lecturer will have different cultural background, and they might have different style of learning and teaching as well. The third one is that I really want to see about the employer. Apart from the students and lecturers' perspective, the employer's perspective is worth to investigate, because for the sub-degree level, it is important to see about the employer's viewpoint on this group of students who entirely have the online learning, and see about the employability as well, and then their working skills. So here are my 3 ideas for the future collaboration within the UOWGE Global Network. If you have interested in doing the research together, feel free to contact me. And this is the end of my presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keanu. And before you, Stacey, 2 very interesting presentations. In fact, thanks to all our speakers who've presented so far in the first section. We're now going to move to the panel discussion, where you'll meet some of these presenters again. And this discussion is going to be led, moderated, in fact, by Senior Professor Gursel Alici, who is Executive Dean at the UOW Faculty of Engineering and Information Sciences. Thank you. Over to you, Gursel.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm so excited and so happy to hear about a diverse range of presentation ideas and lots of potential to collaborate. Especially, I want to thank Keanu. She made a very nice introduction to the session, and the session that how we all can put our research strengths together to address the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. You have seen some of them in Stacey's presentation in various languages. As we all know, those goals were set in 2015 by the United Nations to realize them by 2030, to make sure that nobody is left behind. How we can work together to address those goals and challenges which apply to any region, any country, any community. And there are 17 of them. I think as a community, as a university, we got all the elements and the network which brings us together today about research collaboration and how we can put our strengths and create the synergy, the keyword synergy that each of us, when we come together, we can solve lots of interesting and challenging topics. So the aim of the panel discussion is, of course, exciting to share each other's experiences, and we highly encourage the attendees and our guests and put their questions in the chat box. I can see some questions are coming. Maybe I can wait for a few more minutes, and before I direct the questions to our 6 eminent panel members, maybe I'll just briefly introduce each of them already. Each of them, or most of them, I should say, presented and talked about their exciting units, their facilities, research groups, and some of the research results, etc. Maybe briefly, not too much. And the first one is, I will just follow the list, is Senior Professor Pascal Perez. I'm sure everybody knows Pascal, and I'm sure Pascal will raise his hand. And Pascal is the Director of the Smart Infrastructure Facility at the University of Wollongong in Australia. And our second panelist is Dr. Ong Song Kwan, and he has passion for cross-disciplinary research that impacts the community. And in his talk, he obviously demonstrated that one, especially with the focus on controlling the spread of dengue, a potentially fatal disease with data mining and computer vision. That was very impressive. The third one is Stephen Wilkinson, and he's the head of Smart and Sustainable Cities Research Cluster at the University of Wollongong in Dubai, and also fellow of the Chartered Institute of Highways and Transportation. And his main focus is on sustainability within engineering, including materials development research as well as systems sustainability. And our fourth one is Associate Professor Brian Wong from our UOW campus in Malaysia. Brian is a seasoned strategic marketing professional and academic with solid and progressive corporate teaching and training practices. And he's also the head of the School of Business, Business School, I should say, at the University of Wollongong, Malaysia, KDU. And he has more than 20 years of local and regional exposures in a multi-industry setting. And third one, Professor Stacey Carter. She showed what her center is aiming, what it's achieved, and highlighted once more how important is collaboration, how important is we all to come together to solve some of the challenges. And her center is for deliberative and values-based research in health. And her background is in public health, applied ethics, and social science. And last but not least, Associate Professor Balan Sundarakani from University of Wollongong in Dubai. And he's an associate professor, as I indicated, in the Faculty of Business in Dubai. He has 20 years of teaching and research experience in the area of supply chain management. And the amount of funding he raised is impressive, around 3 million Singapore, I think it's Singaporean dollars, I guess it's S. And there's also some United Arab Emirates dinar. I think there's a $7 million there. So that's all very impressive. So these are our panelists. So currently we have 2 questions, perhaps. I think maybe, there's one, can we research? I think there's a nice question from Wong from Malaysia campus. By the way, everybody welcome, and I'm sure it's morning in Dubai. Good morning to you, and good afternoon to our colleagues in Malaysia, Hong Kong, and other campuses. As you can see, I'm based in Wollongong, and it's a sunny day and enjoyable day here. So the question is from Wong, and he's asking, how can we, I think can we do the research projects, I guess, or how can we collaborate on research projects? I can maybe take this one as I think is about, maybe he's asking about some tips, some suggestions from us. What could be the tips for the research projects? How can we join the research project? Thank you, Wong. I think you helped me to save our time. And how can you join? I think that's a wonderful question. So maybe I can ask one of us from Dubai campus, also Malaysia campus, maybe Brian or Balan, one of you. Maybe Brian, do you mind answering? I'm happy to add more. Brian, is that?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. That's
right.
great.
So I know Jackson personally. His office is next to my office. So you can always drop by Jackson, and then we can discuss further on what sort of research that we can work together. I think he has a very interesting field where it is not usually used in my own research, especially in tourism sector. Yeah, when we talk about using of graphic design and advertising, these are not the usual things that we will put into our framework in our study. I guess first of all, for Jackson, try to determine which area that you want to research first, and it's quite easy nowadays for us to just browse through all the UOW campuses to look for potential collaborators, yeah, whether it's professors or associate professors. Look for what are the research has been done, whether those areas are something interests you. But I think one of my personal advice for researchers is that try not to have a fixed mindset where you just fix on your own expertise area. Yeah, it's always best that you have a broader sense of what research is supposed to be and how can your expertise contribute to another area. That will definitely enhance the novelty of your study, I guess. Yeah, so that's my suggestion for Jackson.
Thank you, Brian. That's a wonderful answer. And thank you, Wong, for asking that question. We got another question from Marion. And what are some of the challenges with your research when collaborating across the different campuses? And how do you feel that this will change moving forward? That's a brilliant question. Maybe I will direct this one. It looks like there's a direct question to Pascal and Stacy. Maybe I'll ask, maybe Stephen, would you like to answer any challenges when collaborating, because you've got lots of experiences in China and now in Dubai and lots of international experience. You can please, if you can answer this one.
Yes, definitely. The main challenge is the communication and making sure that everything is clear, and also making sure that you don't use up everyone's time. So it's nice to have regular meetings, but every meeting that you do has to have a purpose. Otherwise, you will just waste people's time. But you do need to make sure that you communicate, and you need to make sure that every time you get together, there are actions that come out of that. Every time you start a new meeting, you review those actions to make sure that everything is progressing. And it's very useful to have the PhD student who is regularly sending out newsletters, updates, so that you know what's happening with the project and where it's going, so that everyone can chip in as their experience is needed in the project. So communication is key.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. The next question is from one of the attendees to Stacy and Pascal. Is there a way for researchers at other UOW campuses to engage with your institutes? Exactly, that's the aim of this conference, to bring us one or two steps together to know each other, to break the ice, and to networking. As you know, networking is a two-way street. So this is the way we can meet and then move forward from there. So Stacey, maybe first, and then Pascal.
Absolutely, thanks, Gazel, and thanks for the question. And this conference is a great start, right? Because we get to experience one another, we get to find out what all the fantastic things happening across UOW. We're always open to hear from people who are interested in engaging around research, and I'm sure Pascal will speak to this too. All of us need to have an area that we know is the thing that we do and we do well. So there's always boundaries to what collaboration can be effectively, but then picking up on what Brian was saying earlier, often bringing in people from other disciplines or people with other perspectives can actually make research a lot more creative and can take it places that has more impact and that is more relevant in more places. So I think just to start, make contact, and we're really interested in hearing what people are doing around the world and how we might be able to find some common ground.
Thank you, Stacey. Pascal, would you mind briefly answering 10 questions?
All of the above. Thanks, Stacey. I think, and this is the reason why I pivoted slightly my presentation early on. For me, from a smart perspective, I think any collaboration, as long as you can nail the impact, the potential impact, excellence, and you don't, I'm not talking about Nobel Prize here, but excellence in what you're doing, even if it is very narrow, but it's clear to others, and diversity, accepting diversity of your potential collaborators, these are keys. Now, how it can happen, I don't think there's anything in writing that prevents us, or has even prevented us ever to collaborate, honestly. It's because our focus was not there. But as soon as director, I've been made aware of our regional campuses and international campuses, I thought, gosh, what a great opportunity. Let's make it happen. And I think it was too early at the time, but we had a project in Hong Kong with MTR for 3 years. And it was just when UOW Hong Kong started to be created. So it was a bit too early, but I would have loved to engage with my colleagues in Hong Kong, of course. And if there is another opportunity presenting itself very soon, that would be my first move, going there, telling my colleagues what we're doing and finding a way to collaborate. In Dubai, and I'm happy that Maya Barashi is on this call today, again, the same, it started with a discussion and said, oh, we have to do things together. How can we do things together? It was through teaching, experiential learning, maybe projects, maybe consulting. I think it's up to us to make it happen. You know that, Gersel, I'm very good at blaming the institution all the time. On that one, I cannot blame the institution. I can blame only ourselves for this not to have happened earlier.
Thank you, Pascal. Your point is wonderfully made. The next question is from Professor Glenn Solcat. Thank you, Glenn. Good to see your name. And you made a wonderful point that the synergy, the cross-disciplinary collaboration is the key. And your question is, what are your tips for successful collaborative research across areas of expertise and across national boundaries? Perhaps, Balan, I didn't direct any questions to you. Do you mind starting and sharing your views and tips?
Of course, Professor Kursal, of course, glad to answer this question. I think it's a very interesting, important question. Whenever you're working on a collaborative research project, the success of the collaborative research projects, is always based on the recipe that you have in the project. So based on our experience, the mega grant that we received from the Ministry of Education in Dubai, we created the synergy first internally. So we mastered in internal collaboration first before we seek collaborative partners externally. So that's the synergy that we created with the team. We started as a small team, I would say way back in 2017 with the initial seed funding we received from our UOW Dubai campus. We initiated a small project as in the form of vertical farming in Dubai as an idea, and then we extended this idea towards the idea of national interest to propose as a food security project. Then we reached out to external partners with other universities in Dubai, the International Center of Biocell and Agriculture, Dubai Municipality, and there are always like-minded people out there internally and externally. So the tips or the recipe for success is to reach out fellows, who are like-minded in interest in terms of, having similar thirsty for research and also the hungry for contributing to the society. And I think that's this synergy basically, provides that novice in the research project, and that's bringing the success of the project. So this is actually a kind of journey that we have heard in the past over a period of time. And then we submitted the proposal in 2019, and it was awarded in 2020, early January. So we need to reach out. You may not know, what side, the other side of the line, what are some interested or potential opportunities lying out there. So these are some ideas perhaps could help fellows to reach out and help possibly to create that synergy in their projects.
Thank you, Balan, for this detailed answer. I think maybe that's sufficient for this question, for this wonderful question. For next one is for me. And thank you, Ryan, for your email. You sent me an email to do PhD with me. Yes, I am open. I think as we exchange an email, we need to find a scholarship for you. And actually, when we had a meeting with your president of your campus, we were talking about how we can have some dedicated PhD scholarships for our students from other UOW campuses to come to the main campus to do PhD. We can establish a two-way collaboration through your supervisors or lecturers or professors in your campus and campus here, rather than bidding for the same scholarship, which can be challenging. So yes, I am open. Yes, we are open. Please, keep talking, and we may continue on our conversation based on your previous email. Thank you for that. And next question is to Pascal. You are very popular, Pascal. And he says, hello, Professor Pascal. I'm from Penang, Malaysia again. I'm drafting a research on the development of digital infrastructure. I'm sure you are reading it, Pascal. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I'll read it. Keep reading. Structure of 6 as amenities, accessibilities, activities, attraction, ancillaries, available package in local tourism destination. Do you have any similar study? That's first question. The second one, do you think that application of the technology on the 6 A's might provide safer environment post-COVID-19? Pascal, yeah, 2 questions.
Gosh, I'll pre-park the second one because okay. I will need to reflect upon it and come back to you on that one. Except that the short answer would be probably yes. On the first one, yes, definitely yes. I think, as I mentioned before in my presentation, we've got collaboration in many countries now with individuals or research groups, again in Vietnam, in UK, and it's about bringing ideas from both sides and finding the money, honestly, to support research is a secondary problem. If we've got good idea and good link and common thinking between the different groups and individuals, I think it's easy. So please just jump on your email, send me something, and we continue the discussion offline. More than happy to try to find a way to collaborate.
Thank you, Pascal. That's a wonderful question. Next one, is there any discussion of setting up a platform where researchers from various campuses can share their ideas and research outputs? A kind of global notice board. It's a wonderful suggestion. Maybe we can, I don't know, feel free, any of you want to jump in, I can just comment briefly. Maybe we can set up a news group, like we are part of some professional news group. For example, myself, I'm part of Worldwide Robotics Group. You just send your question, your inquiry, your note, and anybody following in that network can answer it. I think this is a very useful suggestion which we will take on board as one of the outcomes of this enjoyable panel. I'm enjoying the panel, especially having so many questions from the attendees is very motivating, very supportive. Yes, Balan, you want to say something to that?
Yeah, I may take up this question. I think it is a very good question. It is very important to have such a platform where potential researchers can share their ideas and also look for potential partners inside outside. I see a similar platform being available. The one is the Horizon Europe platform, where existing researchers bring up their short and long proposals, and also they look for potential collaborators outside. So if we could learn from that as an experiment, as a takeaway a platform, a similar platform, readily available for all of our colleagues here, where we could possibly share our ideas, potential topics of research and collaborations, and that would really be a first step milestone to take away to the next level.
Thank you, Balan. That's a very, very good comment. The next question is from Professor Hiev, and he's from Malaysian campus. Maybe I'll not read all the texts, and he's referring to the presentation by Professor Wong, referring to yours, Brian, and talking about teaching Potunga from the Hong Kong campus. And Malaysia has a very interesting education system and very rich cultural and ethnic background. That's perfectly true. One of the primary and secondary education stream is using Mandarin as the main medium of communication, sorry. I think it would be interesting for your research to be compared with a parallel research on the rich language and cultural background in Malaysia. Brian, do you mind briefly commenting on that? That's a wonderful point.
I think Prof. Yu is referring to Prof. Wong from Hong Kong campus.
Okay, he's not here then.
He's not here, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I think certainly will, pass this message to Professor Wong from Hong Kong campus. I'm sure they will collaborate, cooperate. That's the aim of this conference, to bring interested parties together. Professor Hiev will put in contact with Professor Wong from Hong Kong campus, certainly. Thank you for that. And we have another one from Mario Fernando. One way to improve our research collaborations is through PhD supervisions across campuses. I can't disagree with that. That's perfect. Is there a formal process to promote this? I mean, again, if anybody wants to answer, feel free. If nobody's raising their hand, I can answer that one. And I think we are part of the big family. There is a big family network behind us, with us, to have those joint supervisions. It's just a matter of communications with your supervisor in your host place, in your main place, to communicate with the relevant academic staff, supervisor in Wollongong and in other campuses as well. Not only Australia, but across all of our campuses. So that's one of the good ways, effective ways to establish the much needed collaboration through research and then go beyond research into teaching and learning, student mobility, etc. Yes, I would say there is one, and it comes to identifying and communicating. I think communication is essential, as I think, Stephen, you mentioned in your talk. Communication is the key one. So this will be my answer. If I think that's enough, maybe I'll move to the next question, unless my colleagues wants to add. Another one, Stephen Wilkinson, how do you maintain connection? I think the question, connection and momentum with international teams. You are muted.
Yeah, I've got it. Yes, well, for the first collaboration that I was talking about, I had a slight advantage in that I flew back to the UK every year, and every year I took a train to Liverpool and was meeting with my collaborators there. And so we were both socially as well as professionally talking to each other from that collaboration. And that really did help. But this idea of having actions and having accountability for those actions, making sure that they do not disappear, making sure that you keep on top of them, that really helps. Also, the things that you do outside of meetings really do help. The discussions that you have, the way that you promote how what you have achieved, the small incremental steps, how they make a difference. That really keeps momentum behind the team, where you can see that there is incremental achievements, like celebrating small victories. That really does help with the team.
Thank you, Stephen. Very good point. And next question is from anonymous attendee, perhaps the same one, yeah. And he's asking about research funding, especially long-term research funding. What are your tips for young researchers, and what trends are you seeing globally about funding models? I don't know, Stacy, Pascal, or Song, I think that we feel free. At Song, we didn't give you much opportunity. Feel free if you want to jump in, or any of us colleagues want to share their experience, their tips about how to raise funding for research, which is a challenge for all of us.
My tips is only one: keep trying.
That's it, and don't give up.
Keep trying. So you see the opportunity, then you keep trying. And don't expect you will be success at the beginning. So the funding will be only award those that prepare really, really well. Means you really have the novel and those really innovative, and definitely we can refer to SDG lah. So nowadays, all this funding will refer to SDG, or we can refer to your local government, what will be the direction. So I think we have one previous section is about this funding. So those speakers already mentioned all this our individual country direction. So then why not we just refer to this country directions, then definitely, and for this kind of pilots, then definitely cross, one of the good tips is actually cross campuses funding. I mean, cross campuses collaboration usually will be having higher chance. Okay, why I'm saying so is I come up from the point of publication. So if in terms of publications, okay, if your authors is come from many multiple discipline and different campuses, most likely this paper will be accepted at the first place. Okay, why I'm saying so, because this also contribute to their ranking. So that's why cross campuses definitely help.
Thank you, Song Kwan. Very good suggestions, very sensible ones. And I think cross-disciplinary, multidisciplinary research and collaborative research are the preferable ones to make your case stronger. But trying, not giving up, and trying, being resilient and being determined and being passionate about what you're trying to achieve is essential to get that momentum and motivation. You should believe in what you're trying to achieve, and then try. You will get it. We all have stories to tell you, and that will be good. And next question. I think we are all doing well in terms of getting questions. We have another 10 minutes. Please, attendees, keep sending your questions. We are all liking them and enjoying to answer all of them for all of the attendees. And the next question is from, I think, Vilma. So thank you, Vilma. She's answering a few questions. That's brilliant. There was one question about supervision, etc. So that's great. And again, anonymous attendee, you are a champion. He asked, or she, they ask a lot of good questions. Can we learn more about the research strengths of, oh no, the first question, sorry, too many again, as I said. I will go to the first question, to all. How can collaborations be facilitated during COVID and this time of decreased travel? So anybody wants to jump in? How we have done it so far, and how can we continue with our research, with our momentum, not to give up, not to, to continue with the momentum, and especially keep our students, our junior academic colleagues on track to make sure that they stay motivated. Any tips, any experiences from any of us? Can I put anybody at spot? Maybe Stacy. Yeah, thank you, Stacy.
Sure. So it's interesting, here we all are, right? Like all people from campuses all over the world online together. And I wonder whether we would have done this as well before COVID, right? So if the thing that we're focusing on is, how can we collaborate in the time of COVID? I mean, COVID has been incredibly difficult for so many of us, as Trish noted in her opening address. And I think all of us have had to have somewhat reduced expectations of what we are able to do in research terms during this difficult time. But COVID has shown us how global we really are, that we really are all connected, that what happens in one place affects another place, that humans have a lot of interests in common, and in fact that humans have to take the interests of non-human animals very seriously as well, because that is just as relevant to us and our futures. So I think COVID has almost taught us how important collaboration is, but it's also given us some really practical skills that we didn't have before, like being really great at Zoom. So that's kind of created space for me, at least, to collaborate in a more effective way, in a more real-time way, in a way that works across time zones more flexibly. So maybe the future of global collaboration is going to be stronger post-COVID because of all the skills that we've gained and the new insights that we have.
Yeah, well said, Stacey. That's a great point. Yes, Palan, would like to add some?
Yeah, the COVID created, in fact, some challenges for our projects as well. And also it created some sort of ease and opportunity while creating our team early in last year and also this year. When the success of in our project, it was announced as one of the successful grants. However, due to COVID situations, the money that we received from the government got delayed sometime. Then there were delay in terms of your recruitment, creating that team. We identified the best postdocs, searching all over the world, and there were a lot of delay in terms of kind of communication, identifying the best talents. But we also had the opportunity of online platform. We used this effectively, sorting out and also reaching out and speaking out and creating that right people for our team. So therefore, yes, there were kind of opportunities and that we used. At the same time, challenges were there in terms of the communications, in terms of having that the right documents, and also the kickoff in our project.
Thank you, Balan. And Pascal, you were raising your finger. You can say something.
Yes, if there are skills we've learned during COVID that I'm happy to forget before I'm getting too old, it's probably the Zooming thing. Honestly, I'm over it. I'm good at it, but I'm over it at the same time. More seriously, I think, that's what Balan was saying, COVID threw a massive spanner in the wheel in terms of international collaboration. I mentioned a couple of projects we have in UK. We've got a PhD student that was being desperately tried to come to Australia to complete an Australian part of a research. We've got projects, 2 teams from Wollongong have a project in Vietnam. I've been racking my brain when we're building the budget and how we're going to make this happen with all the equipment we have to ship there and the collaboration. And so it was a big spanner, but at the same time, it was a catalyst. I think we're going to all, I'm not sure it's a good news, bad news, but we're going to all rush into our trains, cars, planes, unfortunately, to collaborate face to face. And that's the beauty of human nature, I think. We need each other physically, not a 2-dimensional thing. I think our brain is not wired for 2-dimensional small vignette of people. I need to be able to see you in 3 dimensions and even touch you.
Thank you, Pascal. Very good point. Nothing can replace reality, a handshake, a frank conversation, and this face-to-face and next to each other conversation and interaction. I totally agree. Thank you for that. We have a question from our wonderful attendee, anonymous attendee. He's or she's asking about research strengths from Malaysia and Dubai. Maybe I'll ask Brian. We didn't ask you, give you a chance more at the beginning. You said something. Yeah. Do you mind, Brian, talk about research strengths of your campus in Malaysia?
Okay. I think research is still very of an infant stage at UOW Malaysia KDU, but it's nothing too late to start something, I believe. Slowly the momentum is built on as we start to build a bit of research culture, whether it's on the undergraduate or postgraduate level. I guess the main strength of Malaysian side is the diverse culture that we have, yeah, and the multidisciplinary that we have as well. Probably that was what I would suggest the strength of Malaysia side. What about you, Dr. Ong?
Yeah, I totally agree. One of the good strengths about Malaysia is diversity. So whatever you think about language, culture, any domains, so actually we have all of them in Malaysia.
Thank you, Song Kwan. I think that question is being answered. There was typing going on. Maybe I'll jump to the last one, then I will come to the question about sabbatical for the sake of the time. From Tek Kun Lu, he didn't or she didn't ask before. He's asking about the resources and talents and inter-campus collaboration. Question is, how could those resources and talents could be integrated and cooperated? Could be a challenge to achieve the objective. So it's how we can put our resources and talents together. That's first question. And second one is, may I know what is the future plan for the collaboration and integration of the resources? Anybody wants to have a go? And again, as we said at the beginning, collaboration is essential to solve difficult problems, to put our strengths and this was demonstrated during COVID very obviously. I mean, we couldn't have generated those vaccines and other testing if it wasn't the collaboration and the resources and all this. Looks like, Pascal, you have something to say? This is my initial comment. Or was it Pascal, you were going to say something? And so I was just saying that certainly the plan is to continue with this collaboration, with this communication and across the campuses. Again, this is the beginning to know each other, to contact each other. And I can tell each of our participants, don't be shy, just send an email and try. And sending an email will not cost you too much time and resources. And we all are in the same boat, same situation, open to collaboration, open to support each other. So we find collaboration is a way anchoring ourselves with each other. When a storm, if I can use this metaphor, like COVID comes, we don't disappear, we don't lose our positions. We support each other as using this anchoring metaphor and to move forward and deliver and train our students and deliver against our expectations. So I don't know how much time we have. 1 minute remained. I mean, again, maybe I will jump to anonymous attendee. You are a champion. There is one question about sabbatical. Do you have sabbatical at UOW? Yes, we have sabbatical. It's called Special Studies Program now. And we encourage our staff to spend time in our other campuses. Similarly, if any of our audiences want to spend their sabbatical here, and we will be very happy to host you, to support you, to work together. Maybe I'll stop here. We have 30 seconds. I got a warning that we should finish in 30 seconds. So I take this opportunity to thank all the attendees for their wonderful questions. We enjoyed to answering them. And many thanks to the panel who frankly, directly shared their experiences, answered the questions. So it was a wonderful experience. I truly enjoyed it. So I'm here closing this session and looking forward to meeting each of you, working each of you, and interacting hopefully next year. Next year will be a year for us to travel around. Thank you again. To you, May Albarachi, please. To you, Jeff, sorry. To you, Jeff, and you handle. We will answer the remaining questions, by the way, the attendees. We will answer those questions we couldn't answer.
Thank you very much, Gassel, and thanks to all the panel members for a very exciting panel discussion. It's very clear, isn't it, that much of the impetus now for going forward is coming from our younger junior academic colleagues who are looking for opportunities for collaboration and PhD studies. Because this afternoon session has been concerned with research, we're going to our final presentation now from May El-Barachi at UOW Dubai, who's going to talk about, as the title here says, research funding opportunities. Can't hear you, May. Sorry, you're still, sounds like you're muted.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. I think perhaps May's having some technical difficulties, but I'm happy to just quickly go through this on her behalf. She is back now. We can hear you now, May.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. All right, everyone. So happy to close off this session by talking about research funding opportunities. So of course, funding is an important enabler to research, not only for buying equipment and infrastructure and funding research assistance, but also just in general funding travel and collaboration and building these relationships. So I know I don't have much time left, so I'll go quickly through a summary of some of the information that was presented at the previous summit in September, just to give you the funding landscape across our different countries and campuses. So the first thing is research funding opportunities in Australia. So of course there is a big focus on research, and the government has important funding opportunities. So we have the ARC, Australian Research Council, that has this National Competitive Grants Program. And this program funds or has two main schemes. One is discovery projects and the other is linkage program. So the discovery program focuses on supporting fundamental research and academic research, while the linkage program is more to foster collaborations. So if we move to the next slide, you will see a bit more details about these different schemes. And the discovery programs funding or projects funding range from $30,000 to $500,000 per year, which is pretty significant. While the linkage projects, they range between 50,000 up to 1 million, and they really focus on encouraging collaboration with the industry, government, entities, and have a different number of priority areas that you can see here, such as medical, food, cybersecurity, and so on. Moving on to some eligibility criteria. So the next slide is the eligibility. So basically the main leading institute has to be in Australia. So that would be UOW Australia in that case, but the other campuses have an opportunity of participating as other organizations under this categorization. And the researchers can act as partner investigators and participate in the research and contribute with ideas and efforts. So that's a good opportunity to look at these funding rounds and see how we can benefit from them. Moving on to the next one, Tom. So in terms of funding opportunities in Dubai, recently has started putting some emphasis on research and supporting research activities and funding. So we have two main schemes. One is state university funding. So we have two main state and federal universities that open calls for proposals about 5 times a year. The funding ranges between 300 and 500,000 dirhams. But the good news is the acceptance rate is pretty high. It's about 50%, which gives a good opportunity to get funded. And the main aim is actually encouraging collaboration between the different national and also international universities. The budget spending is pretty flexible, and that the money can be spent even outside the country. Moving on to the next scheme, we have other entities like public and private entities in the UAE that also open calls for research funding, such as Ministry of Education, Jalila Foundation, ICT Fund, and so on. And here the funding range from a small amount like 100,000 to several millions, like 7 and 8 million dirhams funding. However, the call for proposals are more ad hoc, and they're much more selective in their in the selection process of who gets these funding. They also have very specific spending criteria that needs to be addressed. Then next we have the funding landscape in Hong Kong, I believe. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, so in Hong Kong, we have also different schemes. So we have the faculty development scheme, which focuses on research capacity building really in different institutions. And it ranges from 100,000 to $1 million funding up to 3 years. And here you have some eligibility criteria up next. Yeah, so people have to be full-time, of course, and they can only be principal investigator in one application only. And then the second scheme, which is very interesting, is actually focus on collaboration. So moving on to the next one, it's inter-institutional development scheme, focusing on collaboration between different institutions. And of course, you need to have at least 2 collaborating institutions to apply for these. Wrapping up, or we can go to the Malaysia funding landscape. So in Malaysia, we have 2 kind of categories of funding. One is offered by Ministry of Higher Education, and the other one by the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. And they have different subcategories, as you can see here, with different ranges of fundings. And also we have the collaborative research in engineering and science and technology funding schemes that can go up to 1 million in funding. The last slide, which I think is befitting with the theme of the panel, is that in Malaysia, there is an important focus on alignment with SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goal. I think that in the world, we are facing very important challenges, not just with COVID, but in general. So focusing on these global challenges and working together, especially on multidisciplinary and applied research, is the key to solving these challenges. Yeah, I think I'm on time, or I could took a few more minutes extra. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, May. And that really does wraps us up for this afternoon. I'd like to thank everybody for all the contributions they've made today. If we didn't get round to answering your questions, we will do so. Those will be answered offline, and we will be sending out a recording of this afternoon's presentation. Do hope to see as many of you as possible tomorrow at the same time for the second day, which deals with teaching and learning. In the meantime, as I close out, a very big thanks to Tom Bambrick, who has kept us on script and online. Thank you very much.